Do you ever just feel like you're on a little island alone with your opinion? Because everywhere I look and everywhere I turn, I'm seeing so many people praise this movie, and particularly people that I follow on YouTube that review movies and review new releases, and even people that haven't uploaded a video in like 6 or 7 months are coming out of the woodwork to talk about how much they love this movie, praising it, saying it's the best MCU film in years, and just talking about generally how great it was and how great of an experience it was. I saw the movie yesterday. And the more that I think about it and the more that I reflect on it, the less and less I'm liking it in my mind. And now I'm to the point where I have so many issues and so many complaints with it, and I feel like I'm alone on this little island. And I also feel like maybe I'm taking it too seriously when obviously the movie is a comedy. But I'm going to try to get into explaining my reasons why. I'm going to talk about the movie just in general, non-spoilers first, and then I'll get into spoilers, because to talk about my dislikes, I really, really have to get into spoilers, and there's no way around it. So I'll just give you my general thoughts, some positives, some negatives, and then I'll go right into all of my dislikes. But in general, I suppose you know what you're getting into. This is the third Deadpool movie. The only thing that is different here is this is the first Deadpool movie that takes place officially in the MCU, and it is adding in Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. Hugh Jackman's last performance as Wolverine was a movie called Logan, which is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. And obviously, I love Hugh Jackman as this character and just as an actor in general. Check him out in movies like Prisoners or The Fountain or something. Like he's really good outside of Wolverine also. But he's great as Wolverine. And obviously, I remember being a little kid going to see the first X-Men when it came out, and it blew my mind. And I've loved him in this franchise ever since. And Logan, to me, was a near perfect movie. The only flaws I can find in that movie are just minor little nitpicks. I really, really enjoyed that film, and that was a great finale for me. I was good with that. And I knew that when they were adding Wolverine in Deadpool, that it was going to be a variant, it was going to be a different universe's Wolverine, so they're not, necessarily tainting the legacy of the Wolverine from Logan, maybe until you see the opening credits, but I'll get there at some point. But also the Fox movies, the X-Men movies, the Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Elektra, all the movies that came out under the 20th Century Fox banner, none of them really had any solid consistency or continuity. They weren't building a cinematic universe the way that Marvel, like the MCU was when they got around to it. So there's tons of inconsistencies. There's different Sabretooths, there's things that don't make sense film to film, characters just randomly disappear. So, the continuity when it comes to those movies were never great to begin with. So adding Deadpool into the MCU and being able to commentate on that and the MCU's continuity to begin with, along with the state of the MCU, him as that fourth wall breaking character seems like perfect fodder to be able to do that. And then you add in Hugh Jackman, who's always great as Wolverine. You say, okay, he's a variant, he's from a different universe. It's a different Wolverine, so we're good. We get to have him in the yellow suit finally. So it seems like all things should be lining up to be great. And as far as my positives go, a lot of it does lie within Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and, of course, the interaction between Wolverine and Deadpool, which is what the entire film is based upon. A lot of that stuff was done very, very well. And I think that Hugh Jackman really is putting in a solid effort as this character. What material they give him, I'm a little bit rocky on, but at the same time, you could tell that he's really, really, putting his heart and soul into this. You can tell that this is something that's important to him. And you can tell that it's important to Ryan Reynolds too. You can tell that these two guys have wanted to make a movie together for so long, have wanted to play these characters and do their back and forth and everything, and they finally get a chance to do that. And while watching the movie, the major positive I can say is that you feel the energy that they really care about making this movie. Those two actors together are really putting in the best performances that they can. They're doing the best with the material that they have to work with. And it's just it feels cathartic. It feels cathartic to see them together. And that's definitely the highest praise I can give this movie, is just their performances in general and them being able to act together, the banter between them. They did a solid job with that. My other positive is that there are times when this movie pays tribute to past Fox Marvel films that no longer exist, that are kind of cut out of existence, both literally and figuratively within the movie. And we see there are cameos, right? And people say the movies are just based upon cameos and stuff. I would say that this movie focuses 85-90% straight on Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not really about the cameos, but some of the cameos that they put in this movie, even me personally, who was kind of over that kind of stuff, I got pretty hyped with a few of the choices that they picked. I didn't know who they were going to pick. There's one that's fairly obvious that I'll get to in the spoilers, but there are 3 that show up as like a team later on, and each one of them got more and more exciting as they were revealed, and I didn't expect some of the cameos and some of the characters that they put in here, and they gave those characters their moment. They gave those characters a time to shine, and it's characters that you would never expect to see again, that maybe haven't been on screen in 20 years. That was really, really fun to see, and I like that they included them, and I like the way that they included them, and so that was probably my favorite segment of the movie is when those characters were introduced in like the 20-minute span that we spent with them there. But other than those things, I felt like the movie felt very tedious, and for me personally, and this is probably just a personal thing, and it's not going to affect everybody, and if you loved the first 2 Deadpool movies, I'm sure you will love this one also. But for me, I feel like a lot of the Deadpool humor has kind of gotten stale, and this movie is one of those films where it does not shy away from the fact that it's a comedy, and it's a little bit hard. It was a little bit hard for my brain to process at times because obviously, stupid. I know, Deadpool movie, it's a comedy, right? But I felt like the first Deadpool movie was a good balance of having a lot of humor in it, but also having some heart and some soul to it, and really great action sequences on top of that. And this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, they try to put heart into it, but I just don't feel like any of it works, except for maybe some of the Hugh Jackman stuff. But even then, it's very vague, and and because it's not the Wolverine that we followed from the Fox films, like, there's this detachment with his tragic backstory that it kind of works, but we don't really get fully into it. And with Deadpool, the things that he's dealing with, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I feel so... I'll get into I got to talk about it in spoilers. But just generally, I think the Deadpool humor and the Deadpool shtick and the mile-a-minute jokes, and that every 30 seconds there has to be another joke, and that we have to constantly break the fourth wall, and that there has to constantly be references to this and that and the outside dynamics of Marvel. Like, every minute or two they're referencing like Kevin Feige and Fox Studios and Marvel buying Fox and Marvel doing this, and it's like it just continuously takes you out of the in-world story because every couple of seconds we have to make some fourth wall breaking joke. And I guess to me, it's just gotten stale. Like, it worked very well for me in the first Deadpool movie. Granted, I haven't watched that in probably multiple years at this point, but when it came out, I really, really enjoyed it. But I think that it's just gotten stale for me. And this movie just throws joke after joke after joke after joke like every couple of seconds, and like some of them hit that, but that's the thing, is like you have to sit through all of this kind of bland, boring, fourth wall breaking, cheesy jokes over and over and over again. Then all of a sudden one will land and I'll start laughing. But it was like, 15 minutes of jokes that did not work for me. Then all of a sudden one joke was like, oh, that was great. And then it went back to 15 more minutes of jokes that don't work for me. And it's just like the same shtick over and over. And I get it, like, it's Deadpool. I know I should expect that. And if you're a huge Deadpool fan, I'm sure you'll love it and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But it has just worn out its welcome with me. And it got so tedious by the end of the movie, just constantly over and over again, joke, 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 joke. And it just doesn't work for me. And it makes it hard to take anything in the movie seriously. And I know, obviously, it's a comedy. So then it gets to the point where it's like, okay, if nothing in the movie matters and I don't take anything seriously and there's no drama with these characters that actually matters, then all right, I'll just turn my brain off and try to enjoy the comedy and action. But if the comedy for me gets tedious and repetitive and just annoying after a certain point, then it's like, okay, I'm only relying on the action. And the action sequences in this movie, they're hit and miss with me. There's some that I think are good, but there's others where I think the choreography is pretty bad, and some where it's like it hypes you up for a good fight scene and the fight only lasts for like 30 seconds or it's over in less than a second. Like, they bring back characters and it's like, oh shit, they're gonna fight, and then it's just over in like 2 seconds and it's like, okay, well, all right. And then some where it's just non-stop, just CGI in your face constantly, and you don't really get a sense that the actors are actually doing the movements or actually doing the choreography, and it looks more like a video game cutscene. On top of that, with the cinematography, a lot of this movie is very gray, and that's because of like the location that they go to, and I get that and I understand that. But you look at a movie like Furiosa or something that just came out, and even though the entire, or Dune, where the entire movie is a desert landscape, but it still looks beautiful. Well, this movie has a huge chunk of the film take place in a desert landscape, but it just looks washed out. It looks gray. It's boring to look at, and I hate to say this, but it reminded me of the final action scene in The Flash, which was also horrible, where you're just looking at this flat gray background, like desert landscape, and there's just nothing. There's just nothing to look at, and you're forced to look at the choreography. And if the choreography's not good, then like everything that you're looking at just becomes very gray and washed out and bland, and I can't even remember it. Like I can't even remember. I saw it yesterday, and I can't even remember half of the fight sequences. And obviously, too, this is not a movie you can just go in and enjoy. Like, it definitely requires prior knowledge. Like, if you had never seen Logan, if you'd never seen any of the other X-Men movies with Hugh Jackman, if you hadn't seen the first two Deadpools, if you don't have at least an awareness of the Fox Marvel movies that came before the MCU, you will not understand anything that's happening in this movie, like, at all. This is not a movie for somebody to just walk in off the street. And in that sense, it does have a lot of crowd cheering moments for people that have watched all of these films, right? And I'm not denying that. There were still moments in the movie that I liked and that I enjoyed. But it doesn't stand on its own. Like, I feel like it so much fits into this current time period right now, and this movie is not going to make sense or matter at all in 10 years. It's just going to kind of fade into, and just into the ether. It's going to go into the void of where this movie takes place. Like, I don't know, man. Anyways, let me get into spoilers so I can get a little bit more specific. If there is any single representation of where we are right now currently with the state of comic book movies, it is the opening credits of this film, where Deadpool is literally digging up and desecrating the corpse of Wolverine from Logan, from a great Marvel comic book film, literally digging up the grave and desecrating the corpse of that film. Like, there's no, like, that is, whether it was intentional or not, is perfect symbolism of where we are currently with comic book movies and Marvel. Like, literally digging up the corpse of something that was once great, especially when you saw the announcement that they're bringing Robert Downey Jr. back to play Doctor Doom now, which is a whole other, like, stupid decision. But it's like perfect. Whether Deadpool, they intended that scene to be a joke, but for me, I looked at that and I was like, that is where we are right now. That is where we are right now with the MCU and comic book movies. Like, it's like the past is dead. The greatness is gone. All we can do now is dig it up and swing it around. So the running theme of this movie, I couldn't really talk about this without going into spoilers, but the running theme of this movie is wanting to matter and wanting to make a difference and, having regrets of your past, right? So with the Wolverine story, it worked fine because of Hugh Jackman's performance, but I didn't really like the way that it was exposited to us in the film. Like, it still made it hard to care. The only thing that attaches you to the character to make you care is because of Hugh Jackman's performance, because he's just a great actor. But, he basically let down his entire X-Men team, and so that's his reason for wearing the yellow suit, is because he's kind of like, he didn't want to do it in the past, so now he's embracing it now in kind of like their memory and their legacy. And joining up with Deadpool and joining up with the team that they find in the void is kind of his redemption arc, right? Deadpool's redemption arc, on the other hand, doesn't really make any sense to me, because his whole thing is that his girlfriend from the first two movies broke up with him because he's not doing enough. What? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, literally, the dude is a regenerative, practically immortal, assassin, but superhero, that has saved people multiple times, literally saved her life in the first movie, has done far more good than he has bad since becoming Deadpool. And she, like, breaks up with him because, you're not using your powers to do enough good. Like, fuck off. Like, instant breakup. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just like the most contrived reason, like, his girlfriend breaks up with him and he wants to get her back. He wants to prove his worth to her. It's just like, is the most cheesy, like, contrived, stupid reason that doesn't even make any sense. I don't know. And then you have other characters from the Deadpool movies that, you know, are staples of Deadpool, like Colossus and Negasonic, you know, Teenage Warhead. They have about 20 seconds of screen time in this movie, so they get nothing to do whatsoever. I understand the one actor, you know, him and Ryan Reynolds had a falling out. He's not there. Didn't really miss his character, but just not really having those characters in the movie at all. I mean, I thought that was a bit of a disservice to them that have been there from the beginning. Then you get the whole multiverse plot with our throwaway bad guy character that sits at a desk and twiddles his thumbs and just says, oh, I'm going to delete your universe or whatever. So Deadpool has to go around to all these different multiverses to try to find a Wolverine to bring back to his, because the Wolverine of that universe, the Logan, was the thing tethering the universe together, or that's the spiel that the guy gives him anyway. So, like, then he has to go find a different Logan. There's different cameos. Henry Cavill as a Logan was pretty funny. I'll admit that. That was good. But after he finds him, they send him to the Void, which is like this place that, you know, all of these characters and franchises have gone because nobody cares about them anymore. That's where the broken 20th Century Fox studio is. Did I say I was in spoiler? I can't even remember. I've been ranting, so I can't remember. We're in spoiler territory now. So they go down there, and the main villain of the movie is Xavier's sister, who I know is a character from the comics, but I don't really know anything about her. But she doesn't really get a ton to do. She has like a again, Marvel usually always has a villain problem in the MCU movies where they kind of show up, they do their evil villain spiel, but then they don't really matter to like the actual storyline of the film, and that's how this character feels. And then of course you get all the cameos. Some, of course, like Sabretooth, only show up for a second, so like what's the point of bringing him back? And then some characters that don't even have like a lingering shot. Like you see the other Nightcrawler, the Azrael or whatever his name is, the like Red Devil, you know, character from First Class, but he's only like vaguely on screen. I think there was like the Russian from the Punisher movie too, just kind of vaguely on screen. The Juggernaut from X-Men 3. You know, they're all just kind of here like working for her. You know, it is whatever. The good cameo that I expected was showing Chris Evans, because obviously everyone's going to think that he's Captain America, and then he goes flame on, turns into Johnny Storm. But this whole thing too, with, you know, Deadpool basically getting Johnny Storm killed and then not giving a shit about it. It's like, it's a running joke through the entire movie. And that's the whole thing, is like, he wants to be an Avenger. He wants to be somebody that people rely on, somebody to save the universe. But he gets this character killed, and the entire movie plays it off as a joke. And I understand it's a comedy. I know. That's what all the comments are going to be like. It's a comedy, Ryan. I get it. But at the same time, there's got to be some kind of, like, grounding. There's got to be some kind of, like, verisimilitude of, like, the universe that we're in. And with Deadpool, there's just not. And I guess that's what the Deadpool humor is. And I guess maybe that's why it doesn't work for me, because even if it's a comedy, even if you're going to have constant jokes, I at least want to feel like the characters in the movie care about what's happening, or at least feel some tension for the characters. Like, I want to feel like the danger is actually real. I want to feel like the characters are in peril. I want to see the characters rise up and fight against something that's important. And even if it's a comedy, you know, and I think that that's where this movie loses me, because everything is played off as a joke, because Deadpool did get Johnny Storm killed, and he doesn't give a shit, and it's played off as a joke the entire film. And it's like, I guess that's just Deadpool, you know? I guess back to the good things, though. The cameo of the team that was in the Void area, all of those took me by surprise, and obviously the ones that I particularly enjoyed was Blade. All right, so you see Elektra, Jennifer Garner's Elektra, Blade, Wesley motherfucking Snipes as Blade, and then Channing Tatum as Gambit. And again, because this movie plays on so much humor of like behind the scenes, you know, that only works as a joke if you know that Channing Tatum was supposed to play Gambit in a Gambit movie that got canceled. So, you know, having him play Gambit in this film is kind of like a little bit of a redemption for that, right? And he was pretty funny in it. Channing Tatum, I think, has a lot of good comedic timing. You know, I like the 21 Jump Street movies. I always thought he's really good at comedy. And that whole sequence was the comedy segment that actually worked for me. So their banter back and forth, you know, his French accent, and then Deadpool commenting on the French accent, being like, dude, we can't even understand what you're saying. I feel like we're missing important exposition here. That stuff did work for me. That whole segment, seeing that team of characters, that worked for me. X-23, obviously Daphne Keane back as Laura too. So all of that was there in the movie, and I think it worked fine. It was fantastic to see Wesley Snipes as Blade. Again, you know, seeing him come back as Blade in a movie like this maybe take something away from it, but they did give him his due. You know, he does have that same gravitas as he always once had, 20 years ago when he played Blade. And in those fight sequences where they had those characters battle, they at least gave Blade they gave every character a moment. They gave Gambit a moment, Elektra a moment, Blade a moment. So I'm glad that that was at least included in there. And that was like the main cameo that had me hyped up. I just did not expect to see Blade. That was cool. And the other thing that I thought was really lame was the ending. The fight scene with all the Deadpools was fine, but I don't know. I felt like it could have been better. Like, it was fine. Like, it didn't blow me away or anything, but it's like, okay, like a tracking shot that, I don't know. It was fine. But having the climax, the finale of your movie, like, I don't know. This movie is a huge budget film, too, obviously. And the final climax is not a fight scene with the main villain. It's not anything apocalyptic. It's not anything hyper dramatic. It's literally just Deadpool holding like one end of the wires, Wolverine holding the other, and like they hold hands, and like, a cheesy song plays as a bunch of CGI electricity surrounds them. And like that's the end of the movie. Like, it's just nothing but just like pure just CGI, time vortex, travel, energy, whatever, and like the characters holding hands and screaming. I don't know, dude. I just like, you couldn't come up with a better way to end a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. Like, there couldn't have been some climactic, high stakes, fist pumping, adrenaline fueled, superhero badassery. It was just like, and I get it. It's like, oh, they can't do it alone. They're a team. They got to do it together. I don't know. Anyways, that's my rant on Deadpool and Wolverine. I think the long and short of it is the Deadpool humor it's worn out its welcome with me, and it just doesn't work for me anymore. And despite having a couple really cool moments in the film, this is a movie that I will not go back and rewatch again. I mean, of all the Deadpool movies, I'd probably rewatch the first one, but I probably would never watch this one again. So that's where I'm at on it. But I'm in the minority, I'm in the minority. I feel like most people are loving this movie. Most people are really enjoying it. A lot of people are praising it. They're saying it's the best MCU movie in years. So obviously, like, there's something wrong with me, right? It didn't work for me. Fell flat for me. Just not really a big fan of this one. There are things I like about it. I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. It's like right in the middle, It's like, I wouldn't say it's like atrociously bad or anything. Like, I think it's, for what it's trying to do, it succeeds. It just doesn't work for me. But that's where I'm at with it. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'm sure. I'm sorry. I got to be honest with you guys. Everything that comes out, every movie I review, I gotta give you my honest opinion. So just wasn't a big fan of this one. But let me know what you guys think down below. Leave your comments, thoughts, opinions. Thanks for watching. As always, guys, give the video a thumbs up and a comment to help it out in the algorithm. Other than that, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.